I'm not against going inside, but I don't want to be forced into somewhere either.
How to combat the homelessness crisis in San Francisco has been a debate for decades.
A tent is a piece of fabric. Who's inside that tent is a human being.
But will anything change when the new mayor takes over?
When you're doing with the sweeps, we're just moving them around.
Today, we're asking if that change in leadership will lead to a change on city streets.
We are going to be compassionate but tough about the conditions of our streets.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Elizabeth Cook.
I'm Ann Makovic in for Liz, and homelessness is a problem that plagues many big American cities, but perhaps nowhere is it more obvious than San Francisco. The issue has vexed mayors for decades, and now Daniel Lurie is going to be up to the plate. Today, we're asking, is there an actual solution that's humane, effective, and doesn't break the budget? Well, homelessness is just one of the key issues that Daniel Lurie is set to inherit when he becomes mayor of San Francisco. Encampment sweeps have already moved hundreds of tents in the Tenderloin this year. But one nonprofit is looking to take what they call a more humane approach toward homeless people. Our Suji Nam has that story.
Have to come back.
Oscar Salinas walks about 8 miles in the Tenderloin district during his shifts as a Glide community ambassador.
Awesome.
At 7:30 in the morning, he puts on a purple ambassador vest, picks up trash, and helps those that are living on the streets.
I'm out here to provide hope for all the unhoused guests that we are out here and just take care of my city like I've always wanted to do.
Oscar says all it takes is to just be human.
Pants? Oh, okay. We'll come back and we'll bring you some pants, okay?
He carries snacks and something else that many people may have come to take for granted.
I gave you guys socks, right?
He believes this is the right way to improve the city, not through homeless encampment sweeps.
There you go.
In July, Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order for local governments to address the homeless crisis by clearing them from the streets.
The long-term goal is for them not to be in the streets anymore. When you're doing with the sweeps, we're just moving them around, but that's where we come in though. We do the compassionate part, we do it with unconditional love.
Every shift, Oscar checks in with familiar faces who he's come to know in the familiar parts of town.
We'll come back and check on you, okay? All right, brother. Saying hi to everybody in the community, and sometimes that's all they need, and that's all they want.
He also signs them up for shelters nearby and provides them with resources like where to get a warm meal.
We're serving chicken today at Glide, so don't forget. We have confirmation on 6 individuals that we've sent back home, so that right there in itself is rewarding in itself.
Andre Torrey with the city's Department of Emergency Management helped with the planning of the nonprofit's ambassador program.
Definitely have seen some impacts there. We got a lot of good feedback from merchants, some of the neighborhood associations and other folks. So I would say yes, it's still early on, but definitely tons of great feedback and some visible change for sure.
Local businesses like this one.
You have a good day, okay? All right, thank you.
That once had graffiti all over.
They'll take care of the graffiti, and as you can see, there's no graffiti on here, and there's no graffiti on the wall here, so she's pretty happy. I just like to check in with them.
Oscar, a first-generation San Franciscan, says his passion for helping his community is on a deeper level.
I've been in recovery for 13 to 14 months now, so I'm proud of that. So I have a lot of fellowship around AA and things like that. So I have that connection with the unhoused folks that are struggling right now when it comes to staying sober, staying clean.
Being that helping hand that he once needed in his life to get to where he is today.
Everybody thinks it's dangerous down here. I would invite everybody to come down here and walk with us.
All it takes is one walk.
Thank you. You're welcome.
One walk.
How you doing today?
I'm blessed.
That can change someone's life.
Well, San Francisco Mayor-elect Daniel Lurie has a lot of experience getting homeless people into housing. But will his background actually make a difference on the streets once he becomes mayor? Coming up, we're asking a homeless advocate how she thinks the new leadership should handle the issue of homelessness. We'll be right back. 8,323. That is the number of homeless people in San Francisco, according to the latest point-in-time counts in the city. At least 4,000 are considered unsheltered, sleeping in parks, tents, and makeshift shelters, even bus and train stations, or in vehicles and abandoned properties. Providing solutions for the homeless population is one of San Francisco's toughest and most enduring challenges. And incoming Mayor Daniel Lurie says he is up to the task. He says step one is keeping people at City Hall accountable. And he has spent years working to get people off the streets through his nonprofit Tipping Point. That connects nonprofits with leaders and partners to amplify their ability to provide solutions in the Bay Area. Lurie says much of the success of his nonprofit was copied by City Hall.
We have housed over 40,000 people since 2015. We've prevented thousands more from falling into homelessness. And simply put, what we see from the City Hall insiders is they took that plan, they ran with it, they're building shelter.
Now, following the Supreme Court's ruling on Grants Pass in June, Governor Newsom doubled down on his call to action to clear homeless encampments across California, threatening to freeze funding from cities and counties that don't follow through. And then just last month, the governor announced a new round of funding to help local governments tackle the crisis. But it came with accountability and transparency rules to measure how strategies are working. San Francisco got more than $40 million. Mayor Breed celebrated the effort after a recent quarterly count found encampments were down 60%.
It's finally starting to happen. We're seeing remarkable changes. The streets are looking better. The streets are a lot cleaner. But we also know there's so much more work to do.
Lurie attacked the sweeps when they were announced in July, calling them a publicity stunt and saying they were just moving encampments from one block to another. While critical of the sweeps, he has listed clearing encampments as one of his key priorities when he takes office. Lurie's plan includes creating 1,500 emergency 24/7 housing placements in the first 6 months, while shifting emergency and interim shelter management to the Department of Emergency Management. In his first year, he is trying to increase funding to the Homeward Bound program, which reconnects people with family and support outside of San Francisco. Within 2 years, he plans to add 2,500 interim bridge housing units, including hotels, motels, unfunded units, and modular shelters. That's what he says he wants to do. But will those plans actually get people off the streets and into housing? Joining us now to talk more about the problem and some potential solutions is Jennifer Friedenbach with the Coalition on Homelessness. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So as far as policies, let's go back, over the decades. What do you think City Hall has been doing right?
Yeah, I mean, since 2020, because we had Prop C, the measure that provides housing, shelter, mental health, and substance use treatment, as well as prevention dollars to the city, there has been a lot of progress. And unfortunately, during that time, we had the pandemic, and there was a lot of people entering into homelessness.
Yeah,
and
so what policies do you think help?
Well, huge help is prevention in doing short-term, medium, and long-term subsidies, whether that's an elder whose rent is kind of rising up and they're on a fixed income, or a person with a disability, or maybe dad has a broken arm and is, does labor work and basically needs a little bit of bridge funding to stay in the housing. That is incredibly important, especially when partnered with legal assistance.
Okay, preventing it.
Yeah, you want to prevent homelessness, and that's the most cost-effective, most humane, of course. It's an area that San Francisco has been falling down in quite a bit. And then, you want to have a really good investment in housing. And that way people, of course, are leaving homelessness. But another thing a lot of people don't think about is shelters are really expensive. Actually, in San Francisco, shelter costs more than it does than rental assistance with support services, which is part of our permanent supportive housing. And so you really want those shelters to turn over. You want the people who are in them to be able to get to have short stays before there's, a big negative impact, because staying in shelter is not a walk in the park. And then they get out of there as quickly as possible. And then somebody else who's in need of that shelter bed can move in. So that's really the most highest functioning systems have a really strong investment in prevention and housing. And that makes for the more efficient use of shelters. A big shelter expansion, you get like a 1-year gain. And then when you go down the year after, you have a huge explosion of homelessness again.
Okay, so prevention and then turnover in these shelters to get them into more medium-term housing. All right.
Or just into housing, it could be just extremely low income housing, but it's generally got to be subsidized because the rents are just too high.
Okay, so for the people that are now in encampments living on the street, Daniel Lurie has said that he would have cleared encampments years ago and that he will do that when he becomes mayor. Is that practical?
The whole clearing of encampments thing, what does that mean? When you are working with people who are in an encampment to get them off the streets into treatment, shelter, housing, you're able to clear an encampment, right? When we talk about sweeps, what we're talking about is coming in and destroying people's property, evicting them when they have nowhere to go. And so that's what we consider a sweep. So of course we want everybody who's in encampments to get out of the encampments and into appropriate placements. Only a small portion of the homeless population have tents. So that's not representative of the whole population. Most people are sleeping rough. They're sleeping in a lot of different circumstances, whether they're sleeping in parks, on sidewalks, in cars, in RVs, in abandoned buildings, and there's folks sleeping in. We have a bunch of families sleeping at schools in the gymnasium. There's just a variety of different circumstances there.
Right,
So,
right. It's these encampments that just attract a lot of attention. I want to switch gears because we don't have a lot of time, but the connection, a lot of people would say there is one between homelessness and drugs. Lurie planning to declare a state of emergency when it comes to fentanyl on day one of his administration. How do you think that's going to affect people living on the streets?
we have a substance use, issue where we don't have capacity in our system. And so if we want to address that, we really, for opioids and fentanyl, there is medical treatment that works really well. And medically assisted treatment is not easy to access and it's highly regulated. So in order to really address the crises, we need to deregulate medicine basically that addresses what is a medical disorder. So, homelessness, very few people enter into homelessness with a substance use issue. Some people do, but it's a very small minority. But that rate gets higher and higher, substance use, as people are homeless for longer and longer.
To try to deal with their situation, I'm sure.
Exactly. So the most important thing we can do is stabilize people in housing, and that gives them the opportunity to address their behavioral health issues, if they have mental health issues, economic issues in terms of getting a job. All of it is really transformed if people have a stable place to live.
All right. I know it's such a complicated issue. I wish we had more time to talk about it, but Jennifer Friedenbach, I always appreciate your perspective with the Coalition on Homelessness. We're going to be right back.
Thank you, Fran.